Black Girlhood, a celebration of the magic we are made of as we float through the ups and downs and journey through Black girlhood on our own terms. All right, y'all, I'm going to ask you to roll with me. I'm asking you to take a trip back with me to 2017 when I started my first space alongside Black girls called Black Girl Magic. And this took place in a middle school where I was actually conducting my doctoral research. And so I'll tell you a little bit about how I even came into creating this space, this group. Some folks might call it like an after school club, but honestly, it's just what many of us would refer to as a Black girl space, something that we create for us and by us. And so I was reached out to by a school administrator because they didn't know how to, as they described it, help Black girls. They felt like Black girls kept fighting with each other, that they just were not getting along, that they were struggling academically. And although I felt like so much of this framing was extremely problematic, I didn't do a ton of pushback just because my goal was to get into the school, to see the girls, and to really ask them how they felt about the school and what they may have desired in a space for themselves, if at all, if they wanted one in the first place. And so some of the girls honestly hesitated to join the group just because of pre-existing conflicts that they had, but also because they had some identity things that they were navigating. And so something called Black Girl or Black Girl Magic didn't really sound exciting to them. But eventually they just still came. They came that first day and then they would return week after week after week. And so we created this space and it became one that was really a place of vulnerability. In so many ways during the school day, they were just constantly watched. They were constantly being punished or disciplined, or they just felt like they didn't belong at the school building. But when we created Black Girl Magic, it was the one place in the school building where they felt like they could just be themselves. And so it was also a place, though, that I got to sit with a younger version of myself and heal things that I felt had been lingering and that I needed to heal as well. I also attended a predominantly white school, just like the girls, experienced racism, colorism, a lot of sexism. I dealt with my own issues of not loving myself. But this space really was filled with so much joy that it really brought me back to sit with my younger self and to really interrogate what it looked like to be a young Black girl and to be happy and to feel free. And so I would say that some folks might look at me at the time and consider me to be maybe an expert in creating spaces with Black girls. But to be honest with you, Black girls were at the center of creating and imagining what this space looked like. I did not go in and tell them this is what they had to do, this is what it would look like. I actually leaned into them and listened to what they desired and imagined, and I created alongside other Black women from there. But ultimately, it was so important that these girls knew that they were not the problem. And while the school contributed to a lot of their issues that they were facing, they just needed to be surrounded by people who cared about them, who valued their voice, their experiences, and wanted them to just be. No policing, no strict rules on how they could exist, how they should dress, how they should talk, how they should show up. Just open and honest conversation, real heart-to-heart moments, and honestly, even just some TikTok dances, but truly what felt like freedom to them. So let me ask you to think about this question as you listen today. If you had an opportunity to put Black girlhood studies into action, or even return to your younger self and ask what she desired most when growing up, what might that look like for you? And so today, I am just so very honored to welcome an amazing scholar, educator, organizer, and my soror, Brianna Baker. Brianna Baker is the founder and executive director of Justice for Black Girls. As an architect of liberation, Brianna has built a national nonprofit that reimagines what safety, scholarship, and power look like when Black girls are at the center. JBG, for short, has become a national voice on the urgency of Black girls' safety within and beyond the classroom, with its work even archived in the Library of Congress. Through youth led programs, JBG is cultivating a generation of organizers, researchers, change makers, and all young Black girls who are shaping the future in real time. Brianna has guest lectured at universities across the country and partnered with brands like McDonald's, Nike, Ben& Jerry's, and Sephora to shift conditions for Black girls using every stage. Most significantly, JBG is creating sacred spaces of sisterhood, from retreats to research, where icons like Nikki Giovanni and Angela Davis share the mic with teenage girls. She is also a doctoral student at Vanderbilt University, where her work continues to expand the possibilities of liberated learning and institutional transformation. And so within the past year, I've actually had such a true opportunity that I'm ultimately so grateful for to work alongside Brianna in Justice for Black Girls as a member of the advisory board. I had long followed Justice for Black Girls on Instagram and have always just been so inspired by the work, but also the ways that Black girls are also co-curating the space to be exactly what it is that we need. And so I serve on the research committee in particular, and it has been really, really great just to build out systems and networks of support for Black women and girls in college. But I can honestly say that none of this would even be possible, and even perhaps some of my own work would be possible without the leadership, the guidance, and just the voice of Brianna. And so I'm so excited that you are here today. Hey, Bri, how are you feeling?
Hi, I'm so honored to be here. And so thank you for that incredibly warm introduction. Thank you for this beautiful space that you've created. And again, I'm honored. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. I am just continue to be very inspired by you. I think that just your presence, like you are a true flag girl, truly through and through. But everything that you represent really just makes so many of us feel seen and feel whole. And so I definitely want to give you your flowers. So of course, I would be remiss if we did not talk about young Brianna. So I am going to invite her into the space today. And I wanted to start off with you thinking about her and also what was a core memory for you as a Black girl that has stayed with you, but also maybe keeps returning to you in the future?
When I used to be asked this question, some of the core memories that first came up were about some of the harm that happened to me as a Black girl. Some of the ways in like school, like in elementary school, where I was bullied because of my hair, where like I realized that my teachers didn't think I was as smart as like my white counterparts, and that was just made incredibly clear in the way they communicated with me and the way that my peers interacted with me. But as I evolved through doing this work and being really intentional about revisiting my younger self. Now, my more prominent memories and my more joyful memories are about like getting my first Beyonce CD, and seeing writings on the wall. Sorry, it was Destiny's Child. Let me pay respect. But yes, like it now, those moments are more prominent. Making up dances with my little sisters, the Cheetah Girls, watching That So Raven, and like everyone getting together when a new season dropped. And so I love that I'm able to hold both in because both parts of my girlhood experience inform what we've created now. But I want to be really intentional about being a part of building a world that Black girls don't have to grieve, because I realized that I was grieving parts of my girlhood while holding space for the glorious moments, the nostalgia that has an invaluable place in my memory. I want to be very clear that my Black girlhood is about memory in the most beautiful ways, but also reclamation of the parts of my girlhood that were disrupted.
I absolutely love that. I think that a lot of times we've been talking about how, especially within the realm of like Black girlhood and Black girlhood studies, like whether that be returning to Black girlhood or remembering our Black girlhood for so many reasons because of the ways that it gets stripped away from us, or we how much time we haven't been able to sit with Black girlhood. But something that you're actually bringing to us that I think a lot of times we don't discuss is this reclamation aspect,
Mhm.
right? Like we get to choose and
Yeah.
determine what Black girlhood means, has meant, what it looks like, right? Versus all the noise. Because I too have had my own experiences with harm and violence. And a
Yeah.
lot of times that's at the forefront of my mind when I think about what it was like to be a young Black girl. So I appreciate that you're like, no, we could sit with that,
Mhm.
but I don't want a world that is just full of Black girl grief, right? We can also know that we can take control of like who we are as well. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
that you named that because I feel like a little too often, like, adults are inviting other adults into like, what would you tell your younger self? And sometimes, like when I really sat and reflected, I'm like, no, it's what would my younger self tell me? Because my younger self would have went outside in a Princess Jasmine costume in pink cowboy boots and thought she was that girl. It was somewhere along the way when I met those teachers and I met those folks that that part of me was interrupted. And so it really is a true reclamation that sometimes is not about telling my younger self something different. It's about listening to the version of myself before the world tried to interrupt who she was.
Absolutely right. Because we are inherently born in so many ways into this like space of freedom and just like all
Yes.
possibilities for Black girlhood. And then we are trained and socialized and learned that it's too much or it's not enough or it doesn't fit this mold or this standard when actually the standard should never even apply to us or how we see
Right.
ourselves in the first place. So I actually really, really appreciate that. I think too, as you're talking, and of course, we'll talk about this later as well. Something I really appreciate about you and the work with Justice for Black Girls is the way that you ensure to do this work alongside Black girls. And so, right, it's not just about us returning and remembering, but actually
Mhm.
bringing Black girls alongside us as we are trying to reclaim what rightfully so belongs to us and always had. How would you also, thinking with and still sitting with younger Brianna, how would you describe who she was and
Mhm.
also how you came to understand her?
Yeah. So little Brianna was curious. She loved to read. She was inquisitive. She was observant. She was an eldest of three. Well, of two. She was the eldest. Yeah, the eldest of three. So she had two little sisters who she adored. So she became deeply protective. She was deeply protective of her little sisters. She was deeply protective of her mom. She watched her mom navigate different love experiences, and she was deeply protective. She was adored by her family. I was constantly told that I was brilliant, that I was beautiful, and she held a lot of joy. She loved entertainment. She loved to be entertained and she loved to entertain. And she also like enjoyed movement. She loved to dance and she was intrigued by sports a little bit. She kind of let that go. But she was, intrigued by all of those things. So she held a lot of joy and she always loved like a lot of vibrance and radiance. Like she loved That's So Raven. She loved Hannah Montana. She loved the Powerpuff Girls. She loved girl power. She loved power. She loved seeing girls be centered and fabulous. She loved that.
Wow, wow. That's really amazing to hear too, because you've always been this person essentially
Wow.
then. Like young Bree is actually Bree that we are talking to right now today too. So that
Yes.
feels like really, really amazing.
Aw, yeah,
um,
that. I love
yeah.
that.
So sticking with that, actually, I'm curious like how we go from young Bree into now Brie that we know today, and how perhaps she inspired this journey, but also just your journey to coming into this work. What did that look like? Whether that be Black girlhood studies, but also just doing Black girlhood work in action.
So, I mean, growing up in Richmond, Virginia, is a crucial part of my story. As I named, I felt very adored by my family. I felt very affirmed by my family. But as I started navigating institutions, I didn't have language for this yet. But I was realizing that, like, okay, Black students are treated differently, and then Black girls are treated differently. And I I understood myself, my relationship with my peers. and my teachers and my administrators very differently. I noticed that I was like tracked through, these honors classes, and I was a part of the IB program, but then I was told by teachers that I wouldn't thrive in them, and that, just all of the teachings that, a lot of Black girls hear, especially in predominantly white institutions. And I started asking myself the question, why am I treated so different in my institution than I am by my loved ones? And that question kind of stuck with me. So when I went to Spelman, I was thirsty for an experience that was affirming. I truly believed I was old enough to reconcile at 17 that college was an investment, and that if I was going to invest somewhere, they had to invest in me too. It had to be reciprocal. So I was no longer interested in being in a space that I'm investing in myself. I'm vulnerable. I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. That I knew wouldn't believe in me. I knew that in order to grow, I had to be in a space that was going to water me. I was smart enough to know that. And so I was thirsty for a place that I knew was going to water me. I needed a well. I was tired of begging for someone to see me. I was tired of begging to prove that, like, I maybe deserve to be when I know I really deserve that A. I was tired of begging to, for opportunity. So I went to Spelman. It was the best decision I ever made. Growing up with two younger sisters, and then my mom had two sisters. Sisterhood was a huge part of my life. And one of the most sacred parts of my identity. My favorite thing about my identity is being a sister. That's the most sacred part of who I am. And so when I went to Spelman, and then I got to experience that sisterhood through who became my colleagues, my line sisters, and now my best friends. That was married with curriculum. I wasn't just taking, standard political science courses. I was taking Black women in political achievement. I was taking Black women in biology. I realized, like, okay, this is how you love Black girls through institutions. And so I was like, this is what's missing. My professors saw something in me. They cared about me. And then I saw not just that the folks there, but like other institutions and entities saw the genius and brilliance of Spelman and Black girlhood. Like, we were uniquely positioned to be in unique partnerships with some of the best and brightest institutions that existed outside of Spelman. So I realized that it wasn't just a Spelman thing. Other people recognize the genius and brilliance of Spelman. And so that means there are institutions that do see the genius and brilliance of Black girls. And so I made the commitment then that I would be a part of building institutions that reflected that, and that I would only engage in institutions that honored that. And so that kind of led me to my journey to Columbia, where in undergrad, my thesis was thinking about the school to prison pipeline. Dr. Coulson had just dropped, formerly Dr. Morris had just dropped Push Out. And so that became a core part of my work. I was doing a research education program at UCLA. And so I was working with their data set there. And I was looking at the research that revealed, all of the ways that Black boys were experiencing disparities in the classroom. And I was like, what about the Black girls? And then I was able to reveal that work. When I was student teaching in the Bronx and Harlem and Brooklyn, I was always put at all girls schools. And so I was able to really think about what this institution that I wanted to build would be. I started with curriculum because my master's was in social justice education work with a focus on curriculum. And so I was building this curriculum around Black girlhood, and I landed on from Birmingham to the Bronx because I was student teaching at that time in a civil rights course, and there was no mention of Black girls in the curriculum at all. And I was struggling with no teaching about the four little girls, about the four girls in integrated schools in 19. I'm just like, Black girls were such a crucial part of civil rights. How do we leave them out? And so that was my first, solo class. In that class, the girls cried, and they asked the teacher, like, how could you, leave us out? And he was like, there just isn't enough space. And I knew at that point that we had to take up space. And so what began as just like an after school program that was supplementing my curriculum. I was integrating Angela Davis and Coulson and all these folks, and the girls were responding by creating their own papers and work, and we were getting invited to speak here and do there. That laid the foundation for JBG in New York. And yeah, in 2020, global pandemic happens. I'm like, let me just see if any other girls would be interested in pursuing this work. Let me just see, if they want to do this virtually, they might not. We get 300 applications, and we start rolling from there to create this national, team and cohort of brilliant Black girls that are interested in engaging in this rigorous analysis in the curriculum that's not in their schools. Volunteer, right? Like, we have 300 girls that are in COVID during the summer that are like, no, sign me up. I want to be a part of this. And so that's when I realized, like, there's something hugely missing in their schools, and that we could build it together. And so every program that we created after the ambassadors program was a direct response to what they were asking for. They were like, okay, we're graduating now, and we want to pursue this differently. Now we've read all these folks, and they are Black girlhood study scholars. Now we see we can do that. That opened their eyes to think, wait, I can write books too. Like, we would constantly affirm, like, you're a producer of knowledge. college, not just a learner. So I'm like, you will be someone else's Angela Davis. You will be someone else's Dr. Koofson, right? Like, so they were like, well, help us do that. And so then we had to build this fellowship out, right? That like pays them to do that. And now we're building out an academic network that partners up with mentors like you all. So like each iteration just creates more opportunity to respond to the spaces they're calling for. And so it's been a gift and an honor to build this work out.
Yeah, I absolutely love this so much. It's actually really amazing to hear your backstory too, because it allows so many of us, one, to know like what is possible when we choose each other to build, but also that we don't have to rely on, for example, these types of institutions that don't always want us, like predominantly white institutions, right? Like I grew up and it was always kind of thought amongst our community, right, that like we have to leave the community to go somewhere else to get better education, to do these things. And like, I think you're reaffirming for us that we have the knowledge, we have the education, and we can build exactly in our own community and it be more fruitful, right? There doesn't have to be a starting point of violence and pain and suffering, right? Like what you and I both can like immediately remember from our
Yeah.
childhood, but that we can like build from a place of knowing that we are inherently great just as
Mm.
we are, right? Just as Black girls. So I really, really love and appreciate that. That's been very obvious through the work, but it's really great to like hear that backstory and how you have built this space and done so collectively. As much as your story feels like it is personal because you're like, oh, I went, got educated at Spelman and then I went to Columbia and then I noticed these gaps and like what wasn't happening here and there. You took that knowledge or maybe those limitations in some other aspects and built for all of us. And so
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful as well too. Thank you. I
Thank
mean, we're
you.
not even at the end, but I'm like, thank you.
Thank you.
'Cause Okay, so then can you tell us about like what it has been like, one, building justice for Black girls, but your decisions to work alongside Black girls and to actually do it in this work? Like, there is not a time that I see Brianna without some of the young Black girls in some way, shape, or form, whether
Yeah.
they're on the slideshow or even in my interview to become an advisory board member. Like, I was interviewed by one of the younger people that are a part of the org. So, just that experience and your decisions around doing that.
Yeah, I felt like if I'm going to name an institution Justice for Black Girls, it has to be informed by the very real desires, needs, wants of Black girls. And if ultimately I'm trying to get folks to honor the power of Black girls and not just the empowerment of Black girls, using Brittany Cooper's framework with thinking about like Black girls making decisions, not just doing the best with decisions made for them, then I had to model that within the institution that I'm building. And so for me, that meant I had to figure out how to do what I call the adult thing, is create some of the frameworks while allowing the vision to be co-designed by young people. And so it's a delicate dance because I also don't think young people should be inundated with labor that disrupts their joy and their childhood. But I do know that young people hold a unique power that is able to really catapult true transformation in movement work. And so for me, it's been about honoring what Black girls say they want to do. When they reach out to us and say, I want to be more involved, that we have a space for them to lock in meaningfully and get paid to do so. It's about affirming their contributions the same way I would an adult colleague, while also knowing that we're their first job. And so we have to kind of have some sort of delicacy to, how we establish that. And that has been the greatest gift and challenge for me as a leader, is thinking about how do I create systems informed by Black girls while also ensuring that we're efficient and effective enough to be sustainable when what their desires are and what their interests are constantly evolving, and they're super flexible, right? Like sometimes we've designed programming that a baby wanted to lead that in 6 months she wasn't interested in anymore. You know what I mean? Like she just wasn't. So it's like that delicate dance of like, how do we create our strategic pillars? And I'm learning and growing through that, all the time. It's like I believe deeply that we have to co-design this work alongside Black girls. And I also believe that they have everything it takes to help us build this national movement. And also that we know this movement requires some flexibility around young people. and what it means to be a young person doing movement work.
Yes. So I want to underscore one of the earlier points that you made, which is that Black girls in particular, but Black youth generally, has such a major role in what we know to be the civil rights movement. And so that
Yeah.
energy, right? I appreciate that Justice for Black Girls is reuniting with that energy of young people in movement, right? To create and to
Yeah.
fight for the type of worlds that we actually want. And at the same time, I love that you're like, you know, we have to lean in, we have to communicate with them, we have to make sure they're at the forefront, and we
Yeah.
have to also allow them the space to just be, right?
Yes.
So that just being is like, okay, you imagined the program, you don't want to do it later? Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. That don't mean you kicked out of JBG, right? Like you decided that, actually this program was great. Like I enjoy being an ambassador. And also, I just want to go jump some double dutch or like just have some fun, right? And so I think that that's important for folks to hear too, because a big fear of mine is that I also push for us to like allow youth to be our leaders and at the forefront and to listen to them, but
Yeah.
also not put so much pressure on them that we
Yeah.
then re-perpetuate the same exact thing where we're adding stress and anxiety for them. We are taking away like levels of freedom and all of those things.
Yeah, yeah. I know I didn't anticipate that I would have babies that would wanna work for JBG full time, and I think that's been one of my greatest accomplishments, that we've created a space safe enough where people say, "No, this is exactly what I wanna do." Like, I want to go to grad school, and I want to come back and work for you, and that's been one of the greatest accomplishments for us outside of, like, all of the incredible things people say or our babies say about the sense of belonging they feel, but even that is bittersweet because I don't want to be JBG. I don't want JBG to be the first place they experience belonging, safety, happiness, joy. Like that's not like that. I don't get a lot of pride when people say that. Like I don't want my bed. Like I truly want a world that honors them in every space. Like I truly do. As much as I love that JBG is that, I don't want JBG to be the only place. Like I truly want to be in community with so many spaces that are doing that for our young people. But going back to your point of like, honoring their power, it's been beautiful to see that like our young people want to lead in that way. And it pushes me to get really clear about the systems and the strategy required to create a sustainable infrastructure for them to walk into.
Yeah. I also will say too, like I haven't seen JBG like step away from its principles or like the genuine, authentic expressions of Black girlhood. I think sometimes in the nonprofit space, we like hear some of these narratives where it's like, oh, I have to write up my org in a certain way or I have to shift in a certain way for funders and all of that. But it just feels like you are 10 toes down and like, this is what we are representing for and as Black girlhood. I think that's so important in this moment.
Absolutely. I'm like, we only getting 1% anyway. So if you think I'm a cower down and for less than 1%, I ain't giving us nothing no way. So it's like, no, I'm not gonna model that for our girls. Like I've refused to model that we should shrink. Like we're going to take up space. And even when it's uncomfortable, multiple folks told us, like, hey, like you should maybe change your name, like, justice for youth, and you should really consider taking Black and girl out. You might even want to consider justice. Like, is there another word you could use? Maybe joy for youth, that is more palatable for folks. And I'm like, our mission is really clear. And every time folks say it, even if they're saying a no to funding, they're still communicating out loud justice for Black girls. And that in of itself is putting into the atmosphere the world that we need.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm curious too, because that's really hard work. And I don't want to like glorify, you know what I'm saying? Like there's been times where I've been in the work of working with Black girls, and just to be like super honest and open, like in my previous institution that I worked at,
Yeah.
I was just asked to strip away some of that Black girl stuff because they thought that it was discriminatory, and like they made big threats like, we won't accept any more
Mhm.
grants on your behalf, we won't allow you to use our
Oh,
facilities and all of that. And I was just like, okay, obviously I have to leave. But then part two of that was just like, why would I? The things that y'all are trying to take away from Black girls by restricting grants for me is like stickers and snacks and notebook. You know what I'm saying? Like we are just literally doing what we can with the money that we receive to just let them have an ounce of like what feels like joy or happiness. You know what I'm saying? So why would I then backtrack and be like, okay, then it's just the girls group or whatever the case may be, you know? But that's really hard work. And I feel like that mentally and emotionally took a strain on me. But it
Yeah.
was also a reminder and like a doubling down on like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not doing any of that for your comfortability at all. So I'm curious, like, how you navigate that as well in the midst of like other challenges too.
Yeah, I'm really at a tender space there, because last year our budget was cut by 200,000, with folks just being really fearful of, what would happen if they had Justice for Black Girls on their records of giving. And then additionally, as a program or as an organization that really employs youth, folks were like, well, they're more important folks that need to be funded, who have a staff of adults, who have families, who have mortgages, and so we were one of the first when they looked at, our team, we're one of the first folks that gets cut because they were like, well, they'll be okay, financially. I mean, so they're like, it's not that serious. We got folks with, more need and greater need. And so it was really difficult to navigate that place. Now, JBG became a full nonprofit in 2020. Here we are in 2026, and we're in a way different funding landscape. We were a part of those commitments made in 2010 that ended 4 years. I mean, and there was supposed to be 10 years that started in 2020 that ended in year 4. We were a part of some of those commitments thinking that we were going to be secure, and we created a vision for the funding that we anticipated we would have based on promises that weren't kept, and that really informs the work that I'm doing in my doctorate at Vanderbilt when thinking about leading and learning in organizations and what it means to be a Black woman leading at this particular time, and what it means to build institutions that center youth power, and really thinking about these ecosystems that we're trying to build with a lack of funding and this over communication to Black women leaders that we aren't doing something right. This over communication about, capacity building, and this under commitment of capital that will never enable us to even assess if we're using the skills adequately, if we can't create a budget that we can use effectively, because there's no funds, right? Like, I mean, and when we can assess the difference between, what other folks are getting to, us try all these different, projects out, and to, explore all these different possibilities for better or worse, and so I'm really thinking intimately about what it means to be an institution builder at this particular time and place, and an institution builder that centers young people and that centers youth power. Yeah, again, at this particular time. So that really informs. I'm thinking deeply about that. We've created a new genealogy, and I'm really thinking about the work of Ella Baker and Mary McLeod Bethune, and some of the other folks, Sabtina Clark, and some of the other folks that came before me who were building out, schools and entities and institutions. And so I'm really drawing connections between, the work that has been done and the work that we're innovating now.
Absolutely. Like, this is truly legacy work. So much of like what we know Black women have done for
Mhm.
years and years and years is continuing on through JBG.
Yeah.
And some of that like is coming through not just JBG as like another institution
Yeah.
for Black girls, but also the national conference that you put on every year.
Mhm.
And so that, which I'm very excited for this upcoming year, but
Yes,
even
me
that, like,
too.
it's gonna be amazing.
It
Um,
is.
yeah, just even that space and like who young girls are able to be in the room with, right? Like our ancestor Nikki Giovanni, right? Last year they got to just be in conversation with Angela Davis. Like, you are making moves, building legacy, remembering the legacy, bringing like our elders and folks who have laid the groundwork for us along with us too in this work, and at the same time bringing Black girls to the forefront at the center, etc. And so I really am excited about that. But I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more about the national conference and just some of the ways that y'all have been able to like reinstill that joy and that just being a Black girl despite the times, right? Despite the funding, despite like, even if it's in a virtual space, I felt so whole
Yeah.
after last year's conference. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the national conference is one of my favorite places because it's the place that platforms their work, and really gives them a space to really share in a room informed by safety, belonging, and joy. And so that gives our ambassadors, which are our middle high schoolers, a place to present. It gives our fellows a chance to communicate and share their research. And most importantly, it creates this beautiful intergenerational community that is literally giving standing ovations to our young people as they're sharing these things. So it's like, because sometimes we share and we communicate and it's discredited. And that's also harmful to our young people. And so it's not just about giving them a platform to share, but it's like when we share it, it's reverenced as brilliance and genius. And it's so important to me that every keynote is in direct conversation with our young people, because I'm very clear that this is legacy work, and that when we did Legacy of Revolutionary Dreams, that Dr. Giovanni is passing the baton to Mahogany and Kennedy, and that Dr. Davis is passing the baton to our ambassadors. And our academic network is another triage that's coming forward. When we think about folks like you who are GOATs in their fields, right? Like folks that are really going to be expanding, what our young people see as possible as undergraduate researchers. Like you all will single-handedly transform, their work, their professional pursuits, their academic pursuits. And so for us, it's about creating this triage of support for Black girls. It's about who Black girls are as just girls, right? Like the connections they have with other folks just because they have lungs, and just because they might like the same hairstyle, just because they might like the same food or the same music. But it's also about the Black women who show up in a way that they're like, this is what I can offer the world. I didn't know that was possible. And then it's about the Black women who can transform how they build access and opportunity. It's about the Black women that can be advisors to them as well. And so it's ensuring that, the sisterhoods, the mentorships are intergenerational, and rooted in their desires and their power. They're rooted in reciprocity, because we don't believe Black girls are just something to be poured into. We believe that they offer so much innately, but it's also about making sure that the support that we offer Black girls isn't one-dimensional. It's not just about telling them to look in the mirror and love themselves. It's about disrupting the systems that tell them they can't wear their hair in its natural form, and working alongside them to disrupt those policies. And then step further to say, what can you build that's different? And what can you build to replace this? So that's what the national conference is a place for. And one of my favorite parts is just falling back in love with our Black girlhood and the creative activations we have that just celebrate all that Black girlhood is and the joy of that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. I'm so excited for this year because I know it's just going to continue to be an amazing space. So that's also a plug for the listeners. Like, make sure
Yes,
y'all support.
yes,
um,
Sunday, November 15th.
November 15th. Yes, y'all heard it here. And it's in Atlanta, right?
In Atlanta.
Cool. So coming back to just this work, and I'm curious, like, what do you think has surprised you the most?
Hmm.
Like, looking back from when you decided to begin JBG to where we are right now in 2026, and how far the org and this nonprofit space has grown, but also like the future and how y'all are just like continuing to expand, and the possibilities have not slowed down. So I'm just curious if there anything that has surprised you most about that?
Yes, it's a both and. I was so excited in 2020 to be leading this work, and I felt so much joy and promise. And I was like, oh my gosh, like these intermediaries have been established, and this is really going to transform the game. And I didn't realize how reliant the funding was on political administration. And I didn't realize all of that in 2020. I believe I was 26. I didn't realize all of that. I started JBG when I was 24. So I was just a young, passionate educator and organizer. I was teaching, I was volunteering at Rikers. I was implementing my curriculum there. I was teaching in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Harlem. I didn't have any firm understanding of nonprofit, infrastructure. At Spelman, I was a part of a community service scholarship program that had us start thinking about what it meant to, be nonprofit leaders. But that was just one tenet of it. I never saw myself as a future nonprofit leader. I just knew I wanted to do this work that mattered to me. Fast forward to 2020, when we get our first $250,000 investment, that's not from a grant, but that's from a crowdfunding campaign of folks just believing in our work. And we're asking for $2,500 to distribute mutual aid to Black girl activists, and we raised $250,000 in 48 hours. And my mentors immediately pull me onto a call and say, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to help you build. With all due respect, we're really proud of you. And that's nothing compared to what you'll need to build out your vision. So I start thinking like really deeply about what it means to create an institution that will be sustainable. And so then, unfortunately, my sister passes away. So a lot of my focus shifts a lot because she was my North Star. She is my North Star, the love of my life, all of those things. So personally, I'm dealing with some deep grief around like everything that's happening. We truck through, we get our first grant in 2021, and we start like building JBG out as an institution. Now we're in 2024 and some of those commitments start dying slowly and surely. And our budget gets cut by 200,000. And I'm at a pivotal point where I'm like, what do I do? I really don't know if we're going to be able to sustain at this rate. Multi-year grants are just being cut left and right. And I'm just vigorously pursuing every grant possibility I can. I vision to create an advisory board to get some more energy underneath us. And between 2025 to now, I have received a pledge of $860,000, which is the most money that we've raised in 1 year yet. So God is amazing. I take no credit. I definitely pray with my feet. Now I don't just sit around, child. We was working, but I take no credit for, what has happened. I think that is a beautiful testimony of what's possible when you stay committed and you stay grounded to what your vision is, and you work avidly as if the prayer has already been answered. And so we just kept getting a lot of yeses. And so I'm really grateful to be here, having raised more money for JBG than we've ever raised during a time where they told us that we wouldn't if we wouldn't shrink.
Absolutely. I think it's so important to like hear that story too, because with all the things that you shared, and also thank you for sharing about your sister as well, and we're holding her here in this space too.
Yes.
But so many of the things that you just shared can make it feel like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing this anymore. Maybe we are getting to the end, or maybe
Yeah.
this just has to stop. But the fact that you like continued
Oof.
on, and I'm not even going to ask you about the level of exhaustion and just
Yeah.
difficulty
Yeah.
that took, but you didn't give up on us,
Yeah.
essentially, is where I'm
Yeah.
going with this. Like, you didn't give up on you, but you also didn't give up on us as Black women, Black girls, Black femmes, right? And so I think that that is so important for us to hear, because a lot of these things can just feel so defeating.
Mm.
But if we just keep remembering that we matter for all the
Yeah.
things that we are trying to do,
Yeah.
then at the very least, like, allow that to be what holds us. Even if we
Yeah.
have to break, if we have to pause, that's very real, but we gotta also just hold us. And so I'm really grateful for that too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We're on a mission to get that last 140 so we could say we raised 1 million in 1 year during the most difficult time. So that's, yeah, my eyes are forward on getting that last 140. So yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
make it happen.
We're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
100%. You got a lot of people behind you too, so
I
gonna
said.
make it happen. And so I'm curious as well how and why you made the decision to keep this as an intergenerational space. So my understanding or my experience, right, is that the advisory board is made up of so many different folks across age and like identity in terms of like our gender, sexual orientation, you know what I'm saying? So it's for all of us who are Black
Okay.
women, Black girls, Black femmes, but also some of us who might be a little bit more seasoned, like myself, like I still hold on very much to being a Black girl, but the
Yeah.
reality is I'm not a child. I'm not a young Black girl anymore, but you are keeping us and bringing us along this journey too through the advisory board. And so I was just interested in like your decisions to bring us along in this work as well too.
Yeah, I think we were at a critical strategy point where we needed to collaborate across in order to build the systems to further support our young people, because our young people were on front lines of different movements, and like I know like what it means to be an organizer, right? And that's a different energy than is required to sustain a nonprofit organization. And so when I started thinking about the systems and the strategies and just the small pockets of energy or clarity or specificity or resource that we needed for to close the gap on some programs or to scale some programs, I knew that there were some adult women that cared about Black girl liberation the same way I did, and that would be completely fine knowing that their voices came second to the voices of Black girls, but still as advisors to our nonprofit and our organization had significant experience and established experience with building institutions or sustaining institutions or developing institutions. And so it was a time now for folks that really believed in the mission to help us grow while like getting a firmer foundation for the belief that we would scale. And so I see the advisory board as like both a constellation and a group of shared folks that are watering like the seeds that have been planted by our young people. Because like we had young people planting all these seeds, but we needed some people watering them and we needed some people tending to them. And so we needed some gardeners, you know what I mean? And so I really see the advisory as both and like this constellation of stars that kind of gave us something to work towards because we had so much light and we had so many ideas, but also like that have been really in the weeds with us with like building out, okay, like our academic network and like thinking through like, okay, what it means to have peer facilitators that are trained in wellness and like thinking about what it means to build toolkits to like kind of refine our curriculum and really make it super accessible, like to kind of tighten that bow that kind of is a little bit more difficult for young people without certain skill sets, you know? And so I think it was, you know, beautiful that we had 300 applications for advisory board members, over 300 applications for advisory board members. I wanted 10 and we are at 28. We had 20 because of how many folks, you know? So I think it was a really divine way to allow us or me really as a leader to collaborate across.
Yeah, so that collaborating across that collective work, right? It just
Mhm.
always seems to come back to that, right? Like
Yeah.
community is so important in this work.
Yeah.
I find that for myself too. I can try to like do the thing by myself, write the article, write the book, write start a podcast. You know what I'm saying? But I can't do that without bringing along folks that one inspired this work, but also like literally help to bring it to life, right? And
Yeah.
so I also very, very much so value that. I'm curious, so despite all the things that you are doing with JBG, you are also very much so involved in so much outside of it, still focused on Black girls. So, with the research collectives, you all have received grants, even in the academic space. I know it was a Spencer grant you received with Dr. Mims, but then also
Yeah.
you are in your doctoral program as well. And so, how has
Mhm.
like navigating both the academic side of Black girlhood studies and the practice side of like doing this in
Mm.
action through JBG, et cetera. Like, how has that experience been for you too?
So I never truly saw myself as an academic in this work. And it's been so lovely connecting with like y'all, like the goats in academic, because y'all are always so affirming of JBG, and always so affirming of me, and my scholarship. And I would say that this is very new for me. And because when I think about, you know, even the grants that we're a part of, we really are practitioners on the grant, you know? And so I see myself in this space as a bridge between the adult scholars and the youth scholars. And I see JBG as that bridge and an institution that allows Black girls to safely interact with you all, because our work has constantly revealed that that's not always happening. What always drops in my spirit immediately is Kyla Spring being at University of Kentucky, experiencing racial assault while Aria Holiday was on her campus and built this, right? But like they didn't have access to each other. So what JBG hopes to do is to kind of be that bridge. And so like you all love Black girls so much through your work and in real life. And so you all have come to JBG to say, like, how can I show up? How can I connect you all to this grant? How can I do this? How can we? Because you want to ensure that the practitioners are connected to your work as you all think about the individual labs you all have and, the work that you all do, in your areas. So I would say it's been an affirming place for me, and that relationship has been affirming for me as a leader of JBG. But also, like, even in my individual work, it's an EDD, it's not a PhD. So it's still like super practitioner based. When we think about like what it means to build these organizations and institutions, I'm really thinking about this from a systems building space, about like what it means to build the physical spaces that our Black girls embody and engage with.
Definitely, most definitely. I see you, JBG, as that bridge, and also I see you as informing so many academics. So I do see you as just as much as the scholar academic as well too, because so much of the practice, right, like Black girlhood studies as we describe it is a theory to practice
Yeah,
study, right? it's
yeah,
it's not just about only writing the books or the articles or teaching the things about Black girls, right? Like we have to do this work not just
yeah.
alongside them, but like in practice to build
Mhm.
new and other worlds. And so I think I see you as a bridge and I see you as like a guiding light in both of those spaces as well too. That's been really beautiful to like be witness to and also to just be inspired by as somebody who eh, largely, maybe like most of my time is spent in the academic space though, like honestly,
Yeah.
truly. And so, yeah, it's just been really amazing to see you do it all essentially and to do it with love at the center for all of us.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. I think as we are getting so close to the end, Bree. I'm so sad about this because this has been
I
like really,
know.
really amazing.
I know.
I think I wanted to know just from you, like, there's honestly two things, but I'll start with the first. What is a piece of advice that you would give to a young Black girl today who is navigating so many pressures, negative messaging that makes her feel like she's not enough?
Hmm. Well, I would first start by saying you're more than enough. And what we invite our young people to do is to get really clear about where home is. Because when you're really clear about where home is, you know how to immediately leave anywhere that's not home. And so, one, again, I would affirm that you're more than enough. And I would ask you to think really deeply about the first time you heard that you weren't, and avoid any space that has a voice that speaks against your divine power, your divine knowing, because that is an assault on your purpose, on your greatness, on your brilliance, on your genius, on all of those things. And so when we think about, our young people and we think about, engaging them in like Borlorn's autoethnography of Black girls, and they read like On Being Home with Myself, we really think about that. Like, what is safety and belonging for you? Like, what is a space that feels good for you? And in girlhood, you don't get a lot of agency around where you are. You kind of just have to bloom where you're planted. And that's really difficult. But I love that I get them at an age where we can start defining what feels good for them so that when they do get the choice and the agency to kind of relocate and shift and decide where they're going to be, they can refuse to be anywhere that dishonors them. And so that's part of our work. It's like sometimes you are stuck there in a place that makes you feel like you're not enough, but you have to keep affirming and knowing that you are. And then as soon as you can get out of there, get out of there and get around some people that are going to remind you how brilliant you are. Because I promise you, there is a world and village of Black girls, of Black women, of Black people, of gender expansive folks that want to shower you in love. And I promise you that there is a mirror that will be reflected by so many other folks that will affirm just how sacred you are. And so stick out this moment as long as you can. Get really clear about these entities that are dishonoring you so that you can get out and find that space that's going to be super affirming to you. Because I do think it's dishonest for us to tell babies that they can just thrive anywhere. Some spaces are not built for you to thrive, and you should get out from those places. I don't believe that you should have to do labor to believe in yourself. Like, I don't think that should be something that you have to work for every day. I think that you should innately be in a space that pours into you. And so if you're not, do the best that you can to stick it out and get really clear about what that space feels like so you never are there again.
I feel like I needed to hear that for myself. Thank you. That just gave me some chills.
Aw.
Thank you. Thank you. Another part of that too, right? Because we're doing the both and of this. So for those of us who love and care about Black girls and want to show up, whether that means I need to show up better for Black girls or I want to continue to show up for Black girls, what would you say Black girls today
Mhm.
desire and are demanding from us?
Yeah. I love this question because our babies are working on a toolkit for our elders. It's a love letter to our aunties and cousins and all them. They working on it. So I love that. I would say for folks that are looking for new ways, we start with like the reconciliation that you should always be trying to love Black girls better than you were loved. A little too often I hear, folks say, well, this didn't happen to me, or, this is the way I was raised and it was fine. It might have been fine for you, but our goal is always to be better. And so we have to love our babies better than we are loved. So that means like in an interpersonal level, like checking in on the young girls in our life, making sure that we're calling them in and not just calling them out, making sure that we're not accusing them of identities that shouldn't even belong to them, that are informed by our own bias. So we're not calling Black girls fast. If we see a young baby that we think is struggling with her body or her sense of self, we're calling her in and maybe sharing stories about our own experiences. It's about not being afraid to see you and someone else or someone completely opposite from you than somebody else. Like, it's okay. There's still opportunity for connection. Like, sometimes I don't even think that it's the fact that we see our younger selves and we're scared of that. I think sometimes that we see young people that don't remind us of ourselves at all, and we're a little, scared to engage with some difference and some diversity. And like, it's okay to meet a young baby that's different than you, and you can still show up and you can still show love and you can learn from her. Like, I think it's truly believing that young people are teachers and that we can be in reciprocal relationship with them. And so that we should, and that relationship is sacred. So I think like that's there, like reconciling that we're loving Black girls better than we were loved, reconciling that someone very different than us in a whole different body and a whole different, generation can teach us something really meaningful. And then for those that are already committed, it's really leaning on your village because this is hard. It's hard work sometimes. We got so many things working against us, and you could be doing it all right, and your babies could still be feeling it all wrong because of an entity that don't got nothing to do with you. We raising babies in a generation, that's unlike anything we had. We raising babies in a space where it's like, I didn't have TikTok growing up. It's like, I can't even fathom like all of that. What I mean? I was on Bebo, or I don't even really remember, but, giving ourselves a whole lot of grace and getting real close in community and, being okay with like you not being okay to like do all the things for your young person, and trusting that like it's okay to take turns, like that auntie got her sometimes and that cousin got her sometimes and the other, because like we just can't do it all. And that like really modeling that for our young people is one of the healthiest things we can model. And so like even with me with JBG, like our healing and liberation team came at a time where I really, really needed that, grieving my sister. And I realized like I was learning new tools, and I was like, well, let me share this with my young people. Like it's okay to grow alongside young people. Like it's okay to get it wrong alongside young people. It's okay to get it right too, like we love getting it right, but it's really also super okay to get it wrong. Like I just in my meeting yesterday with my young people, I was like, y'all have really been there with us from 2020 to now. Like y'all have seen me build out JBG. You've seen the failures, you've seen the wins, you see, and so thank you. Like one of them was apologizing for like not hitting a deliverable. And I'm like, I could have not been as clear, right? Like we're learning together, you know what I mean? So it's like really just that vulnerability, I think, of like having that with our young people and just allowing them to see us vulnerable and see us imperfect is one of the healthiest things we could do for ourselves and for our young people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love all of that so much because I feel like it's also, as I'm listening to you, I'm like it's also okay to say sorry to a young person too, right? Like
Yeah.
we make mistakes as well,
Yeah.
and we don't want those mistakes to cause harm, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
it's always okay to back it up and revisit and talk to them as if they are folks that we truly love and care about, because as you said, relationships with young Black girls and Black girls period is sacred, right? And so we want to make sure to hold on to that. I'm listening even more heavily because I'm still new-ish to being a mom. My daughter is almost 2 and I'm raising a young Black girl, and I'm just like, how do I do this in a way? And I'm thinking about my younger self. I'm thinking about my mom because my mom is everything to me. And at the same time, I don't want to be perfect. I don't aspire to be a perfect mom because I want her to feel like she can be just as curious and exploratory and excited and
Yeah,
happy as she wants to be and never fear that who she wants to be will ever make me upset. You know what I'm saying? And so,
yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, Bree. So I'm gonna bring us back to young Bree. And I'm going to ask a question around if you could speak to your younger self, young Bree, who would one day become Brianna Baker that we know today. What do you think she would feel about everything that you have done and are continuing to do? And on the flip side of that, would you have something that you would want to tell her?
Yeah. So me and little Bree locked in. So I know she's amped up. Like I know she's like, get it, girl. On the days that I'm like, she's like, hold on, stop. You know what I mean? Like you didn't know you was gonna be doing this. When I think about my middle school self who like would get anxiety walking into a school that like and didn't know why. But like now I have the knowingness. But like then I didn't know like why my body would be physically ill. Like she's like, hey, like girl, like look what you created. Like you created an entity that middle school girls don't have anxiety going to, like you created like this thing that you needed. Like you should be really proud of yourself, and you're doing that, in a really cool way. Like, get it, girl, like me and her are locked in, me and my girl are locked in. And if I could tell her anything, I would tell her, like, girl, keep guiding me because I need you. You know what I mean? Like, I would tell her, like, you're that girl. You know what I mean? You know that. You know what I mean? But don't allow anything to interrupt your knowingness. Like, and she would be like, girl, what? And I would be like, just keep, you know what I mean? We like to speak in riddles. So just like keep living, girl. You gonna get what I mean eventually. So that's what I would say. Like, don't let anything interrupt your knowingness. And she probably would be like, girl, that was a lot. And I would be like, okay, you'll get it. You'll get it one day. And she gets it.
Don't let anything interrupt your knowingness. Absolutely. Because you already know, right? Like, young Bree, you already
Yes.
know. You already dreaming. You already imagining. Like,
Yes.
absolutely. What are you working on now? Or is there something exciting in your current work that you would love to share?
Okay, I will circle back to the conference. We're super excited about that, November 15th. And our anniversary is coming up July 4th. And we will be launching another really cool campaign that also drops another merch line, which is a point of joy for us, but also a new earned revenue strategy to sustain our work. So please mark your calendars for our next campaign dropping on July 4th. And for our conference tickets, I will be dropping in the spring, summer, so that folks can attend our conference in Atlanta.
Amazing. Happy early anniversary, JBG. And y'all lock into the merch because we both, if you can't see us, we
Yes.
both have on our Justice for Black Girls, our newer shirts that we have, and it's quality, okay? So just be on the
Yes.
lookout. But make sure y'all show up and support. And then where can folks go to learn more about your work or to stay connected?
Yes, you can follow us at Justice, the number 4, Black Girls on all social media platforms. And you can go to our website at Justice4, spelled out FOR, blackgirls.com. Please subscribe. There's so many incredible things happening. We have our New York partnership with Black Girls Smile. We'll be having monthly programming in New York. In Brooklyn very, very soon. We're going to Ghana in July. I mean, we got so many exciting things happening. So please, 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 in addition to our conference, in addition to our campaign. So things are happening at JBG. All of the things are happening. We're so grateful, excited. Please stay tuned and subscribe and follow us. Yes. And I also want
Yay.
to offer all of my gratitude to you. It means the world to us that folks like you that are so committed, that are so brilliant and leading this work within Black Girlhood Studies see us and want to be a part of what we're building because you have every right to just sit and observe and you'd be doing more than enough. And the fact that you are building this beautiful world in academia, that you're writing things that our girls are reading that are truly transformative for them, that they love, and now they get to like engage with you means the world. And for me as a leader to be affirmed by leaders like you in Black Girlhood Studies means so much to me. So thank you for creating this space, the Rolling Archives. Thank you for inviting me into this space. Thank you for being a part of our advisory board and for all that you offer our larger world. So
Of
truly it's an
course.
honor.
Of course. Thank you so much, Bree. I do really, really receive that, and I really appreciate that. And I just thank you for continuing to open space for myself and for all of us. And thank you for
Mm.
being here. This has been a beautiful conversation. I am so, so grateful. I feel so full. I'm like, all right, I could go pick up my
Yes.
daughter and go play and do all the joyful things now. So I am
Yes.
really so grateful for
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Of
Yeah.
course. And I want to
Like I
return
said.
to the question that I offered at the top of the episode. And so I posed to the listeners, if you had an opportunity to put Black Girlhood Studies into action or even return to your younger self and ask what she desired most when she would grow up, what might that look like for you? And I can honestly say, I know that my younger self, my high school self who struggled so, so much, would have desired a justice for Black girls and like would have wanted to and leaped. Honestly, I would have ran at the opportunity to
Ah!
even be in that space. And so that's just another way to show you that justice for Black girls has been such a place that I have deeply felt seen, but also my younger self. And so I just want to give you so much love and just thank you so much, Bree.
Shay, thank you so, so much. That means the world to me, truly.
All right. Thanks so much, y'all, for listening to today's episode of the Rolling Archives podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Rolling Archives, all one word. And then you can also find us on our site at therollingarchives.org. Please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe. Also, like and share on YouTube as well. We will be back with another episode in 2 weeks. Until then, may we keep rolling towards all the places that keep us whole. Remember, as Bree reminded us today, that we got us, that our collective, our community, our sisterhood matters so much, and we can keep fighting for a world that Black girls deserve. And justice for Black girls is justice for all of us. All right. Bye, y'all.